Hey, just a heads up that the following content may be disturbing or triggering for some listeners and is not appropriate for children. Please take care of yourself and others who may be listening with you. Welcome to the Bonus Babies Podcast, a show that has no easy answers, only hard questions.
In foster care, court-ordered visits happen every day in Los Angeles. Well, they happen actually at McDonald's. They do. So every time the mother would drive past McDonald's, the child would go into a full-fledged hysteria. I want to go to McDonald's, I want to go to McDonald's. Because it triggered a memory. The grief and loss, that's where she remembers her mommy was. So I told the foster mother, and I said, I know you're not going to like this. Because she would say, oh no, we're not going to McDonald's, it's not good for you. And I said, actually, I'm going to teach you how to be grief and loss and trauma informed. You actually need to go into that McDonald's. You need to order that burger with her. You need to sit at the table with her. You need to ask her, what was it like to see your mom here at McDonald's? You need to go into the grief, into the loss, into the trauma to heal. And we're not going to fully heal. We're going to soften. Because one of my phrases is, what's shareable is more bearable. She needs somebody to hold this pain with her. So the mom did that.
Can you tell me what you call the kids who you've cared for over the years?
We feel that the children that we receive coming into our home are bonuses. So we call them bonus babies.
I love that. This is your host, Jayne Amelia Larson, and I'm a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate volunteer for youth in foster care. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful. In the same way a CASA works, I explore all things in the foster care maze by talking to kids, parents, caregivers, attorneys, social workers, therapists, really anybody and everybody who will speak to me to keep the conversation open and the information flowing about all things CASA.
Hi, this is Jake Eberly, the producer of the Bonus Babies podcast. We are back for season 4 of Bonus Babies. And very exciting news, we won an Anthem Award for our work with this podcast. So we are very grateful, humbled, and excited to keep going. The next guest that Jayne Amelia Larson speaks with is Jeanette Yoffe. She's a former foster youth who was adopted at a young age. She's now a therapist with remarkable insight from her own lived experience, specialized in treating children, teens, and adults with serious psychological problems, secondary to histories of abuse, neglect, adoption, and multiple foster care placements. Let's get right into it. Here's Jayne Amelia Larson and Jeanette Yoffe.
Good morning. I'm here with Jeanette Yoffe. Hi. How you doing?
I'm good, Jane. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
So I will put this all in the show notes, but you have a lot of websites, a lot of information, a lot of terrific videos, a lot of terrific books, a lot of terrific, you have so much material. You know that, right?
Yes, because there wasn't anything out there. And whenever I did trainings, people said, can you put this on paper? Can you make a video? Because the world doesn't understand the inner life of a foster child or an adopted child. It's such a secret world because it's an invisible wound. You can't see it, but it's there.
Right. So let's talk about that because you are an expert in this world, not only because of your own personal experience, but because of your training, your education, and your work that you do now. So please, you just go, girl.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on to discuss transgenerational trauma involving the foster care system. I know this because I grew up in the foster care system in New York State. And foster care is a very also mysterious world because you can't tell what a child's been through until you hear their story. And when you feel their story, you feel the mental health challenges and the unresolved grief and loss. It will take a lifetime for someone who's experienced foster care and even adoption to resolve. There is no resolve. You're always going to have a part of you that has grief and loss, and that's the separation from not being able to be parented by your biological family of origin. And you haven't had those genetic traits, markers mirrored back to you. So you have identity challenges, grief and loss, abandonment issues, challenges. So
Actually, may I interrupt you? So, will you talk to us about genetic mirroring? Because you just mentioned it. And I watched one of your videos earlier and I've never heard of that. So, I'm sorry to interrupt you because you speak so well, but I just have to know this now.
that's okay. Genetic mirroring is actually not researched. It has not been researched. However, people who have not been raised in their biological families have what's called genealogical bewilderment because they don't have the genetic markers. I don't know where I got my eyebrows. I don't know where I got the color of my skin, the color of my eyes, my little eccentric traits, the way I move my hands, the way I laugh, the way my facial characteristics, all of these pieces, even innate talents. When you don't know where you receive these biological genetic traits, you become confused by them. You can deny them, dismiss them. And it's through genetic mirroring that you receive that validation. This is where you got your tick when you laugh and you giggle. It's from grandpa, right? Or this is every time you do that little thing with your mouth. It's from your mom. She does that.
Yeah, and then it's also even you have friends that say, "Oh, you laugh just like your sister."
That's right.
And so it's affirming to me. Me and my sister are alike. I love her, and she and I laugh alike. But when you don't have that, there's always that loss. That's what you're
And
saying.
when you witness it, it's very painful. It's very painful. I've witnessed siblings do similar quirks, and I could be at a beautiful picnic, and then all of a sudden my grief just hits me, and I realize I never had that. Boy, do I wish I got that, because I don't know where I get my traits, talents from. So it's a lifelong struggle for someone who does not have connections or ties to their biological families. And that's a loss. That's a lifetime of loss. So one of the pieces that I feel very strongly about, because I came from this experience, is open adoption and open foster care. And that's maintaining the connections a child has to their biological families, as long as it's safe, as long as it's emotionally and psychologically supportive for that child's development. If not, of course, we're not going to have a reunion, have visits. Uh, However, for children to know where they come from gives them that genetic mirroring. It helps boost their self-esteem, their confidence. They don't have the challenges that kids who don't have connections to their biological families have. That their mental health challenges are actually, it's the treatment. It's the therapeutic treatment. So I do open adoption work, and I start as soon as that baby is born, and we create a plan. What does the open adoption look like? What is the exchange? Is it visits? Is it letters for the first year, first few years? Is it visits or not? It's really up to the family, and I help everyone ease their anxieties, their fears, helping them understand what each other's roles are, because they're not co-parenting. The child is adopted. They have one set of parents, and the biological parent becomes a relative who's a deeply important person to that child.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background, because I know this is it's instrumental to your work and your process.
Yes, thank you for asking. And so I was raised in the New York State foster care system in the 70s, and my biological mother came to the United States on a work visa to New York City to be a dancer. She was already a dancer in Buenos Aires, Argentina. She had a modern dance company, and she wanted to pursue the arts in, the capital of the United States, New York. It was happening in the 70s. And so she came here. She met my father. She got pregnant. She was Roman Catholic. We need to get married. They got married. Or
Yeah.
lived in New York City for the first 15 months of my life. And my mother began to experience mental health issues, challenges, delusions. She thought about hurting me. She was very stressed at the time. Her mother was very ill in Argentina, so she felt conflicted being in the United States, having a toddler at this point, feeling pulled in two directions. So I think the significant stress that she endured led to her becoming hospitalized, which is what happened. She asked someone for help at the park. The woman said, "Oh, go to Jewish childcare. They'll take care of your baby." She thought it was public child welfare, like public, what do you call that? Um, daycare. She thought she was bringing me, because she's from Buenos Aires. She doesn't know. She thinks this is support from the New York City system helping families. She brings me to this adoption agency and says, "Here, take my baby." She doesn't know what she's signing. And she apparently signed over that she wanted to place her child into the foster care system. She didn't,
Oh my
didn't tell
gosh.
my father. My father comes home. He's obviously very upset by the situation. And now they have a child in the foster care system, and that's me. Her mental health continued to decrease, and she was actually hospitalized at Bellevue. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia. My father felt that he could not care for me. She had a second child. She was pregnant with my brother as well at the time. And so he was born. He was also placed in the foster care system. I believe, she did not have the support services she needed. She was an immigrant here. She didn't understand the system. She was taken advantage of. I believe adoption was very prevalent at that time in the 70s. It was popular to adopt. So there was a lot of issues in the 70s when it comes to adoption. So because this happened to me, I stayed in foster care for 6 years, then went to another home when I was 7.5, which really confused the crap out of me. Because I knew I had a family out there, and I looked very different than other kids my age. I was Argentinian, and my father was Irish American. I was in a new setting, a new family with, new people, strange people. We all didn't look alike. We stuck out like a sore thumb in my neighborhood. My mother was large German woman, Caucasian. I got very dark in the summer. I was always very thin, and I cried a lot. I had a lot of grief and loss, and my mother didn't understand. She would always tell me, "Stop feeling sorry for yourself." But what I really needed her to say to me was, "I'm so sorry. You have so much to feel sorry for." I needed that empathy. So growing up, I had low self-esteem, lack of confidence, a lot of grief and loss, and trauma, unresolved trauma, because I had been abruptly separated twice on 2 occasions from my first family and my foster family. So this work really is deep in my heart because I understand it on a personal level. And now being in the field for 20 years and studying trauma, we're still understanding the impact of trauma. We're still understanding how to treat trauma. I've always been one to be my own guinea pig. What do I need to do? Because I still have parts of me that are hurting. As we're talking, you can see I've become emotional. Still
Yes,
dealing
yes.
with it. My own birth father has his own unresolved trauma. He will not have reunion with me. It shocks people. I facilitate so many reunions with families, with mothers, fathers, because it benefits not only the child, but the parent. The parent's grief and loss, their guilt. But if they don't have the support around them, helping them understand why this is important, they're not going to have the impetus to do it, because there's a lot of stigma attached to parents who lose their child to the foster care system. It's really, really terrible. And it can shatter someone's self-esteem to hear that, oh, you placed your child or your child was removed from you because at that time, yes, you were struggling, poverty, being unhoused, you had your own significant mental health issues, you didn't have the support you needed. Of course, you couldn't parent any baby born on your baby's birthday. They had to be placed in the system. But families change. Parents get better. Some parents, not all of them, are able to do what's necessary when they have the support system around them. There's a beautiful film called First Mothers in Recovery by Sheila Gans. I love this film. She followed 5 women in San Mateo, California, who all had addiction challenges, and they were all at risk for their children being placed in the foster care system. And they all lived under one roof. And she filmed all the services they received. They learned how to make meals for their child. They learned how to write their resumes. They learned how to manage the structure of parenting day to day. It's a lot of work, especially if you're a single mother. They all received mental health services, group therapy. They became a family, a unit in and of themselves. And these women all were able to keep their babies. They were able to parent their babies. So this was a pilot program. And it really, when I saw this movie, I cried through the whole thing. And I thought, why are we not doing this all across the United States? Because the amount of money it costs to place children in the foster care system is millions, billions at this point.
It is billions of dollars. Yeah, it's billions of dollars.
And the money goes to the foster family. And who really needs it are the biological families. They're the ones living in poverty. They don't have housing. They don't have the money to get mental health services. So there's so many layers, and I've just said so many things. I hope I haven't lost any listeners. But, my own father has his own unresolved trauma. He feels so much guilt that he could not care for us. He didn't get the mental health services he needed to help him during that time. The guilt he has, it's not even guilt anymore. It's shame.
Shame, right? Shame. Mm.
You need people around you that have so much empathy and compassion, not judging, not criticizing, loving you for who you are, not what you've done, separating out the two. I have an intervention because I create a lot of interventions for trauma, grief, and loss. It's called the Shame Witch. It's actually called the Shame Witch, and it's more of a sandwich. And the bread on the bottom, this is how you talk to yourself if you're feeling shame about an experience you've had. And you say to yourself first with your best friend inner voice, you're a good person, the bottom piece of bread. You're doing the best that you can. You're figuring this out. You're a good person. You can do this. You got this. Then the turkey, the lettuce, the pickle, the tomato, everything in the sandwich, you put all the emphasis of the problem, the mistake, whatever happened to you, whatever you did, put the emphasis on that. That's what I'm going to figure out. I'm going to figure out how to heal my own trauma so that I can have reunion with my daughter, who I know has been doing this work for 20 years. Be my wish. My wish. And I've talked about this before in other podcasts. He would never even listen to a podcast like this. And then the bread on top, again, is sandwiching it together. You're a good person. You're brave. You can do this. Have compassion for what you've been through. Stop throwing yourself under the bus. You're figuring this out. You're doing it. You got this. And so I teach that to everybody. Foster parents, foster youth, adoptees, birth parents. We're very hard on ourselves. The harder we are on ourselves, the harder it will be to go and reach out for help. And one of my
Okay, I want that too. Okay, I'm guys. Is that video? Is that on your website? Because I need that for myself as well.
Yes. I'll create
fantastic.
just for you, Jayne. I'll create a little video just explaining that.
you've said that your own father, though, you haven't been able to connect with him in this way. He's just not able to do it because of so much shame and trauma related to losing you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He was enraged. I can only imagine when my mother said, "Oh, she's at Jewish childcare," because she thought I was going into childcare. She thought she was signing something for 3 weeks because she needed respite. And that's a big piece in foster care, too. Parents need respite. Even parents who are not foster parents need respite. There's
Yeah,
no
they
respite
do. They
out
do.
there for single mothers. And there's so many pressures today. And financially, we're under a lot of pressure to get your own place, to jobs, to have a job. So there's many pressures that parents go through. But yes, so my father has his own unresolved guilt, grief, loss, shame, and he's almost 80 at this point. And it's very hard to change someone at that age when their brains are just to one track,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
attention
How about your mom?
where
How about your mom? Have you been able to connect with your mother?
yes, so I did find her. So basically what happened was I actually moved to Manhattan. And this is interesting because of the lack of genetic mirroring. I always felt like a chameleon because I would always adapt to other people. It's very adaptable. And there's a phrase in the adoption community. We're not adoptees, we're adaptees. Because we're always adapting to other people that, oh, you're from Argentina? Oh, I'm from Argentina too. Now I have that match, that genetic match. And it could be the strangest nuance, but now you feel connected to this person because of this little genetic piece that you've been missing your whole life, and now you're finding it in this other person, which can be healthy and dangerous at the same time. And so I became an actress because I was so good at being other people because I didn't know who I was. And became an actress, moved to Los Angeles from New York. I did a lot of theater. I love theater. Came here to Los Angeles, and somebody said, we want the actors to write their original pieces. And so I said, okay, I'll write something. And I started writing about this little girl. She's 7, and she's auditioning. And as she's auditioning, the auditioner is asking her questions like, what kind of foods do you like to eat? Do you know how to brush your own teeth and brush your hair? All these strange questions, and we realize she's auditioning for a family.
Wow.
And I'm out there being the best kid ever because I want the part. Because I've been in foster care a long time, and one of my lines is, I know I can be a really good daughter because I've had a lot of experience. I know how to tie my own shoelaces and cut my own hair in case they need to know that. So you see this little girl just pressured and doing anything to get the role of daughter. And so when I wrote this piece, people were laughing and crying at the same time. And I said, well, it's kind of how it felt. Any child going in foster care, we feel like we have to become what you want us to be because we're so desperate for attachment, stability, security. That's why foster youth are so vulnerable, because they so need love. They so need attachment, especially when the whole rug has been pulled out from under them. And out of that came, I wrote a one-woman play called What's Your Name? Who's Your Daddy? And I searched for my birth father, found him, and he would not have reunion. This is 20 years ago, 30 years ago now. And he hung up on me. And I write about that in the play. And I write about really coming to terms and acceptance of having grown up in foster care and being adopted, and what is most important, how I feel about me, honoring me and my life, regardless of what happened to me. And then working with children is what came out of that. Was I really want to work with children. And I want them to know you are not a number. You are significant. What happened to you is not what's wrong with you. And have value. You are valuable. You are worthy. Whether your parent could parent you or not, it's not about you. I'm always helping kids separate out the past from the present. And it takes a lot of someone redirecting, reframing, helping them have what's called objectivity. And the more we do learn about what happened to our families, the mental health issues, the traumas that they've endured. We're talking about transgenerational trauma. They have unmet needs. And when they become parents, they don't know how to meet the needs of their children. Of course, the child's going to end up in foster care. Once we can understand what our parents' struggles were, we can actually have a newfound sense of compassion for them. And why that's important is because we internalize our parents. And if we've internalized our parents as negative, stigmatized, there's something wrong about them, well, that's exactly how we're going to look at our own selves. So when I was able to have compassion and learn that, wow, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, it really struck a chord with me. And I really wanted to understand psychology, why anyone would be diagnosed with schizophrenia. And then I even diagnosed her. I think she had untreated PTSD, which caused psychosis. Because I learned also when she was 5, she apparently fell down a well and was unconscious for a few minutes. And that experience in and of itself was traumatic. She didn't have therapy for that like we would today. That was, we brush this. Oh, she's fine. Brush her off. She's good. She was only unconscious for 3 minutes. She's fine. No, that one significant event was traumatizing for her. And then to go through life and be vulnerable and have anxiety and untreated, undiagnosed. We're also dealing with people who have what's the word I'm trying to say? And I get very passionate about this because it's the question we go through. What happened to our parents? And a lot of our parents were not diagnosed. They had mental health issues that were treatable, but they didn't have the support and resources available to support them through their mental health challenges. We all have a mental health challenge in some aspect. It's getting the treatment for your mental health challenge and knowing how to cope with whatever the characteristics are, the symptoms, so that you can function day to day. And you can. People with ADHD can function. There are gifts of ADHD. You can function. Don't take it as a stigma. I had, obsessive compulsive disorder for a while, and that's also an anxiety disorder. I would constantly organize things, constantly clean things. That helped me feel a sense of relief. And that's what all psychiatric disorders are. They are symptoms that are not healthy coping mechanisms, that are an attempt to find a sense of relief. And it's finding the healthy coping mechanism that gives you that sense of relief. So you're not continuing to either, hurt yourself or get stuck in a negative feedback loop of, I always had to clean something. Now I can organize something and I'm okay with that and I can stop and move on. I don't have to over organize anymore. I had terrible anxiety and I went through all the treatments out there. EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which is very important and a leading treatment for trauma.
Right. And how was that for you? How did that work for you?
I only had to do 2 sessions.
Wow.
And it was
Great.
It's not long term. It's not long term. You need to be with someone you feel safe with. Bottom line, for any treatment, you need to feel safe, especially this population, because we're so vulnerable. We're so sensitive to any perceived sense of rejection. And that's about abandonment. If you look at me and question me and criticize me, then that means there's something wrong with me. Oh, then I'm shameful and I'm not good enough. I'm not going to do this. They need a lot of support. You can do this. A lot of that shame witch over and over and talking to themselves. So
It's just amazing to hear you speak about this, because you're coming at it from with such a therapeutic insight, but also deeply personal insight, because you are in it, doing it.
oh yes,
As you said, all day, maybe.
yes. Oh yes. And I was commissioned by PESI, which is a Professional Education Systems Institute, to draft the first foster care treatment manual for a national training in foster care, which I just finished.
And that's what you've been working on, right? That's what you
That's what I've
just
been working on.
fantastic.
So
Yeah, tell me
I
about
sat
it. Tell me about it.
And I have a bunch of interventions that I've done, but this one intervention I wanted to share with you because it speaks to that generational trauma. And I sat and I went, oh my goodness, this intervention. I started crying as I was writing it. And I said, not only is this for foster youth, this is for parents. Parents. And it's called the self-forgiveness pool. So you get a bowl that you can fill at least 2 to 3 inches of water. You get those large rocks that you can write on. And I like to say 3. I like the number 3. Get 3 large rocks. Get some Sharpie markers. And on each rock, write a strength that you have. Fill the bowl with water. Place that rock in the pool of water. Next, you need to get rice paper, which is dissolving rice paper. And I want you to sit with yourself and think about something that you need to give yourself self-forgiveness for. Something, maybe you hurt a friend and you're realizing it now. We all make mistakes. Maybe you've been really hard on yourself. Maybe you're always putting yourself down. Let go of that guilt, that shame. Write it down on the piece of paper. Read it out loud. Hearing yourself reading something that's personal is also very therapeutic. I will let go of hurting myself. I will let go of shaming and blaming myself every day for the mistake I did 10 years ago. I let that go now. And then you place the rice paper in the water, in the self-forgiveness pool, and it will begin to dissolve. And what's left are your strengths. Focus on your strengths. We all make mistakes. Let go of what's getting in the way of your goals. We all have innate talents. We all have something to offer in this world. Each one of us is unique and has our own special purpose and meaning. And it does come back down to that. Mental health is finding your purpose, your meaning. And this work kind of fell into my lap. I did not realize that I had this talent to create interventions. And the first one I created was an anger bag. I just threw a bunch of coping skills related to anger in a bag because I understood that we need containment. We need a place for things. And growing up in foster care, I needed somebody to have things for me to do, something for me to hold on to, because we're in our heads all the time. I need something physical, inanimate objects outside of me, helping me make sense of what's going on inside of me. So the anger bag, one of the first interventions that I created, and that's been quite successful with a lot of kids and helping them lessen their anger, feel less ashamed about becoming angry. Anger is a healthy emotion to have. It's knowing what to do with it and how to act it out properly. Everyone has a right to be angry and express that anger. It's how you do it, in the way you do it, and where you do it. And that's what the anger bag is for. So, yes.
So I want to ask you about, why do interventions work? Because the way that I understand the way you're describing this is that there are visual elements, there are auditory elements, there are symbolic elements. Is it all of those together land on our psyche in a way that has profound impact that just saying something out loud only doesn't?
Yes.
Or what? Describe it to me.
We are sensory beings. We learn, live, experience through our senses. Taste, smell, touch, sight, sound. That's how we take in our environment. And think about trauma. It's through our senses that trauma becomes absorbed.
Mm.
And I listen very carefully to first responders. And if you listen to their testimony after an incident, they will always rely on a sense. They will say, I went in the room and I will never forget the smell of the blood, or I will never forget the screaming of the child. One sense gets heightened. And part of the work that I do with kids is I always ask them, what sense is most heightened for you? Because that's the sense that we need to soften, soothe, nurture, reframe, so it can feel a sense of relief again, because they're living in this heightened sense. And the trauma brain is always they're looking for that. That's going to happen again. And we're waiting for that pin to drop. So the brain is seeking out the trauma too.
As a way to control it, really,
Yeah.
or as a way to be ready for it, right? As a way to deal with it, because it's going to come. As far as their history has suggested, it's going to come. It's going to hit me again, and I got to be ready.
Brace for impact. And so it's helping kids understand their
Wow.
sensory triggers, helping them understand which is their most heightened sense, finding ways to soothe that sense. Sometimes I'll just have kids close their eyes and just trust that they can just slowly tune out the environment. Because especially kids with ADHD, they're relying on their environment for what's safe and what's not safe all the time. So they don't sleep. They're hyperactive. And that's based in early attachment wounds.
Oh, really? Oh, I
And
didn't
the
know that.
parent not able to soothe
Interesting.
the infant's stress cycles, which keeps them in this hyperactive state, or they don't get their needs met. They're so hyperactive that they tune out, and that's the inattentive. That's ADD. And that's kids that are just not present. They can't focus. They tune out very quickly. They're very quiet. They're not showing the hyperactive symptoms. They're acting it. There's over-controlled or under-controlled behaviors. Yeah, it's just really interesting. It really is based in attachment. It's the inability, as I was saying before, psychiatric disorders are all about the inability to manage stress. And if you're an infant and a young child, if you don't have a parent who can manage their own stress, they're not going to be able to manage that child's stress. And that's where we lead to that transgenerational trauma of unmet needs. And that's the unfinished business that gets passed down from one generation to the next. And there's many factors that impact that child's life. And then one day they want to become a parent. And it's not that they won't, and this is being trauma informed, it's they can't, because they have their own unmet needs. But we will try. Our brains, we need attachments. Our brains are always looking for a secure base, reaching out. However, if we're living in a situation that's highly stressful, there's domestic violence, there's yelling, there's screaming. Every day there's something that happens that's scary and terrifying. There's another track in the brain that tells the child, don't go towards your attachment figure because they're terrifying. And now we have a child in this very conflicted mode of being, and they don't know who to attach to. And then that can lead to other mental health issues, avoidant attachment, avoidant personality disorder, even borderline personality disorder is based in early unmet attachment needs.
So can you give me an example of of a success? You mentioned this recently. Give me an example of, because so that I have hope.
There's hope. There's hope. So out of becoming a therapist, I started a nonprofit called Celia Center, and I named it after my mother, Celia.
Yes, it's a fantastic
Thank
organization.
you.
Good on you. I mean, you've done so many things. It's kind of phenomenal. I'm going to make sure everybody knows about this in your introduction and also in the show notes, that you've done so many impactful things and programs and foundations. But anyway, go ahead. Please tell me about the Celia Foundation.
I'm very much of a Carl Jung, work on yourself. And I would always ask, what did I need? What did I need? And what do I need now? So out of Celia Center, we started support groups. And our main support group is called the Adopt Salon Constellation Support Group. And this is important because the constellation in foster care and adoption are all the stars. Each star represents a person in that child's life: the birth parent, the foster parent, the adoptive parent, the grandparent, the sibling. We are all interconnected, forming interrelationships. And so the Adopt Salon Constellation, I was the facilitator. We would have birth parents there, foster parents sit in a very large circle, facing each other, looking at each other, breaking the stigmas of each other, helping adoptive and foster parents hear the stories of a birth mother to erase that negative stigma. Having a foster youth tell a foster parent, this is what I needed. This is what my parent didn't give me. I got all the care I needed, but I needed the love. I needed them to know, just love, don't just parent me. So we did this group for 10 years here in Los Angeles, and it shifted the mindset of foster care. It shifted the mindset of adoption. Then we really started talking about doing open adoption. And that's when I started doing open foster care. So here's the story. So a young girl comes into the foster care system. She's 6 years old. Parents seek me out for therapy. She'd been in 3 foster homes, and she remembered her first mother, her birth mother. And there's different terms. Some mothers don't like to be called birth mother because it implies she's a breeder. It's negative. Other mothers don't care. First mother, family of origin, mother of origin. So she comes into therapy. First of all, she's traumatized from having moved abruptly 3 foster placements. Secondly, she's grieving the loss of her first mother. She's crying every night, where's Annie, where's Annie, where's Annie? Her parents are, confused by this. I said, this is part of her healing and grieving process, and we need to acknowledge she's missing her first mother. She has memories. So I told the mom, because every time, so I don't know if you know this, in foster care, court-ordered visits happen every day in Los Angeles. Well, they happen actually at McDonald's. They do.
Yeah.
So every time
Yes.
the mother would drive past McDonald's, the child would go into a full-fledged hysteria. I want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to McDonald's. Because it triggered the memory. And the grief and loss, that's where she remembers her mommy was. So I told the foster mother, I said, I know you're not going to like this. Because she would say, oh, no, we're not going to McDonald's. Not good for you. And I said, actually, I'm going to teach you how to be grief and loss and trauma informed. You actually need to go into that McDonald's with her. You need to order that burger with her. You need to sit at the table with her. You need to ask her, what was it like to see your mom here at McDonald's? You need to go into the grief, into the loss, into the trauma to heal. And we're not going to fully heal. We're going to soften. Because one of my phrases is, what's shareable is more bearable. She needs somebody to hold this pain with her. So the mom did that. It lessened her grief and loss. However, she still asked for her mother. So I said, guess what we're going to do? Let's talk about searching for her mother. We understood that at the time that she was placed in foster care, there was neglect, there was drug use, substance use, and there was domestic violence. Well, that was, at this point, 8 years ago. Things change. People change. Let's see if we can find her. The adults. Let's meet with her. Let's talk with her. Let's get to know her. Right? We're all going to keep confidentiality. We're not exchanging phone numbers. I tell a lot of parents, get a Google phone number, get an email address that's only for this. What are we doing here? Right? What is life about? We're here to help each other. We forget that. We're here to support one another. And so we found her. We actually found her first mother.
Annie.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She was struggling. She was struggling. She was still using. The parents said, I said, she's going to need some therapy. They said, okay, we would like to support her getting therapy. Will you be her therapist? I said, of course. So I worked with her for a few years. And it was not every week. We would talk. I'd help her understand her experience, helping her get clean and sober, helping her get her social security card, helping her getting on SSI because she couldn't work because she'd also gotten into a car accident. And so there are many layers to her unresolved trauma and her unmet needs. And her mother died young and she was living with her father. And she didn't have people that understood what happened to her. And she felt so ashamed. And I helped her see her story, her experience different, and helped her see that, guess what? We're working on helping you have reunion with your daughter. This is going to help your grief and loss. It will help your guilt. And you will see that your child has been in good hands. She's developing phenomenally. She's an amazing young girl. You also look just like each other. Talk about genetic mirroring. This little girl didn't have that. She didn't have anybody that looked like her. Everyone was different around her. Then the next step, and I literally draw steps on a piece of paper and go, okay, first of all, we need to help the mother get to a good place in her mental health, help her with her grief and loss before we include the child. Then we need to develop a relationship with her so we're all on the same page. We all have empathy. We all understand each one of you is significant. Her parents, the parents who adopted her, her foster parents to adoption, the birth mother. We understand how significant you are. Thank you for trusting us. And so we all met together in my office, the parents, the birth mother, and we talked about this. We talked about our feelings about having reunion. What would it look like? And the girl doesn't know yet because you can't include children. They can't contain this. This is the work the adults need to do. And having done this, then I sat with the young girl and I said, guess what? You found your birth mother and she's healthy. She's doing well and she really wants to meet you. What do you think about that? How do you feel about? Now I need to focus on her. Now I'm child-centered, following the child's lead. She was so excited. We created another group of steps for her now. What's the first thing you'd like to do? Do you want to write a letter? Do you want her to write a letter? I like to get the business and the questions out of the way first because we're dealing with two people with trauma. The child has questions about why I'm not living with you. The mother is unsure how to tell her what was going on in her life at that time, age appropriate. So I like to get questions out on paper and the child and the parent write each other back and forth. And I'm facilitating, assessing, making sure that everyone's taken care of psychologically and emotionally. And then we have reunion. After we've gotten all the questions, and they had a beautiful reunion at a park. Everyone brought food. They got to meet each other in person, and it was incredibly healing, moving. There was a lot of loss, a lot of tears, and a lot of laughter, and a lot of, wow, we did this. And this young girl, not only the young girl, but this mother, her whole life has changed. You know what she has said to me? I now have meaning and purpose. I now have meaning and purpose because we gave that to her. She did not have the support she needed. Her mother died young. Her father had his own medical issues. She was alone in her experience. We are thriving today. This family is thriving. We have reunions. I still monitor any Zoom calls we do. She's 17. I'm educating everyone how to have a healthy relationship. And the genetic mirroring, they look identical. I mean, the photos, the young girl could see, oh, that's where I get my laugh from. Oh, that's where I get my big smile from. That's where I get my stamina, because her mother's a hiker and the young girl is an athlete. She's like, that's where I get my athletic ability from my mom. So all of these have just validated her, and this is what we need to do. And it's work, as you hear. I put in a lot of passion and time and dedication, but it's worth it. It's worth it. We're changing lives here, and this talk is about how do we heal and disrupt the generational trauma. Well, open adoption, open foster care. So the open foster care piece is this, because that's an open, so now they're in an open adoption, the young girl and her mother. Open foster care, I also helped this little girl. She had 2 previous foster homes. Again, grieving, not understanding, why couldn't I live with them? Why did they send me away? Then she blamed herself. It was about me. I was all bad. And this is how the foster care system creates the shame. And kids believe it's their fault that they can't stay in a foster home when it's not about the child. It's never about the child. It's about the unmet needs of the foster care system, not supporting foster parents in understanding trauma, grief, and loss. You cannot parent these kids like you can parent regular kids who've not experienced early disruption and attachment trauma. And there's me and many other therapists talking about this. And so one family that she significantly grieved for, I got the DCFS paperwork. We searched for that foster family. I called them up and I said, hi, I'm Jeanette Yoffe. I'm a foster care competent therapist. And what I know about trauma and grief and loss is that when a child can understand what happened to them and make sense of why they couldn't stay in your foster home, it helps them with their grief and loss. It helps them take the onus off of themselves and begin to heal and understand it wasn't about you. And they get to see the foster parents again, whom they formed an attachment to. And I want you to know, she formed an attachment to you. She loves you. She thinks about you. She talks about you. Would you be willing to have a reunion with her? And I talked with this foster family about this, and I explained how it would happen. Everything would be organized. We'd know exactly where, what we're doing, the time frame. I break it down to a T. I structure the whole thing. Everybody is on the same page. And they said, sure. They said, we feel so guilty.
Right.
That we couldn't adopt her. We had our own challenges at that time. Thank you so much for allowing us to see her again. All we want to do is hold her, tell her how much we love her. And they did. They had reunion. It was so healing for all of them. So see how the systemic trauma, it gets stuck in the ether. We need to repair these. And there's so many stories out there of foster kids and just multiple disruptive placements. And yes, some of them are just not good. And I would not allow a child to have reunion with a parent who didn't care, didn't love them. So that's open foster care. So that's helping foster parents. And there are foster parents who also came from the foster care system. Look, I'm a psychotherapist who came from the foster care system, and I'm working
Right.
with foster care. I have to work on my own countertransference, which is I sometimes get triggered. Through a client or something comes up, and I need to take responsibility and take care of that part of myself. I did the self-forgiveness pool for myself this week. I use the shame witch on me all the time.
So how do you feel about yourself and the work that you're doing?
sometimes I question, how is this possible? And at the same time, I feel that my mother, Celia, was a very strong woman. And my foster family. I there was a time I looked back at my life and all I saw were losses. Until one day I flipped that script and I went, look at all the gains. I actually got to live with my birth family for the first 15 months of my life. I got a lot of genetic downloading that a lot of other people don't. Kids get separated right at birth. Then I got to live in a foster family. And I like to use the word I get to. I lived with them for 6.5 years. Was it good enough? It was good enough. Were there situations there? Yes. But hey, I had a stable family. I had food on the table. I know they love me. And surprisingly, I still talk to them. I still see them. They're still a part of my life, and I'm an adult. And I've told them, you helped grow me up. You're my family too. And it's helped them to see me now doing this work that I'm helping other foster families. They're proud about that. And then
Oh yeah, I bet they are. They're probably like, wow, you go, girl.
right. And they didn't have support groups during that time. And then my adoptive family, my adoptive mother was very pivotal in my strength. And because at age 13, they put me in therapy because I almost ended my life. I went into therapy. And that changed my life because I was so bottled up. And that's another one of my interventions. A big 2-liter bottle of Coke, and the child writes all the things that are stressing them out on the bottle, and they get to shake the hell out of it and let it all bottled.
Yay!
I have a lot of stuff like that, but it's cathartic for kids. So yeah, it's just for me too. I get excited when I'm like, wow, I wish I got this as a kid. So in a way, I'm healing my inner child as I develop these interventions. It's like a win-win because we're always healing, never healed. So I'm happy to continue to do this work because it gives me meaning and purpose. I hope this book is successful. There's over 175 interventions and it comes out, I think they said next year. So, and it's not only
Yay on you.
foster care. I mean, they're trauma interventions. It could be really for anyone.
Yeah. All right, I want to ask you one last thing that I ask all my guests. And what is the one thing that no one would ever know about you unless you told them?
Let's see. I think I am somewhat of a workaholic.
Okay, that's obvious, by the way. So I don't know.
Um,
But okay, wait a minute. I want our listeners to know that you're the only guest I've ever had that gave me homework to do in order to interview you. Now, I don't mean actually homework, but you did all my work for me before the
Yeah.
interview. I'm like, okay, I have what I need because she sent it to me. Excellent.
Yes. And I don't like to stigmatize. I'm not stigmatizing, but somewhat of a control. I need to feel a sense of control. I need to feel a sense of control in my life, in my world. So yes, I do organize. Like I gave you a structure, like what we're going to talk about, because having that rug pulled out from under me, and I'm still dealing with ambiguous loss. I need to have a knowing of things. So every day I create lists that I have that I know I need to do. And sometimes I have to say to myself, well, I get to say to myself, Jeanette, you've done enough. You're enough. It's enough. Slow down. Right? Like I think, and this is getting deeper. There's a part of me that still feels I'm not good enough and I'm not doing enough, because if my birth father really loved me, really wanted me, that would tell me I'm good enough. So that for me is deep. And I really have to keep it in check and go, you are good enough. Look at all that you're doing. You're enough. And this is, listen, for your listeners, being in foster care is a lifelong journey of supporting your mental health. And I've been doing this a long time. And listen, I'm a professional, and I am not ashamed to say that I'm still struggling with this. I think it's healthy. I think we need to be transparent. And the deeper I go within myself, the deeper I'm able to go with my clients. And that's healing. So, yeah, I think, we just hit the tail on the donkey.
I don't know if you realize this, but your hands dance in a very beautiful way. Have you heard that before?
Yes, I talk with my hands. I'm from New York.
Yeah, but also it's so you're really good gestures, really good. You do really, it's very gestural, very meaningful. You're not just randomly moving your hands.
It helps
It's
me make sense of what I'm saying. It helps me put it into words, because trauma, grief, and loss is so hard to put into words that, yes, I think my hands help me bring it out. Like I'm bringing it out of myself. It's embodying the feeling and externalizing it. And, we're both actresses, so gestures are
so
important.
is
I do theater, so.
Yeah, that's right, and I can see how that so supports and informs your work. It's just really unusual. I think a lot of people that get into therapy, they're not putting it out there. But you anyway. So, is there anything else besides that you've wowed us? Is there anything else that you'd like to share that you would like our listeners to know?
Just don't be afraid to go into your pain. Don't be afraid. We think that when we begin to go into our pain, we're going to lose it. That's the fear. We're going to get sucked into the primal wound of it. But guess what? There's a bottom. And I actually created it's 1 hour. It's on Audible. It's a 1 hour. It's $4.99. You can listen to it. It's going into your primal wound. And we create an oasis in there, a landing for you to just be. And then you get to explore in different chambers your grief and loss and your pain. I created this for me because I didn't know what to do with all this stuff. Well, let me figure out a way to go in there. And if I can do it for me, then this can be helpful for others. So don't be afraid to go into your pain and go into it's called the grief journey to the primal wound. Because everybody has grief and loss in their life. Don't be afraid and take it step by step. If you are feeling overwhelmed, push yourself a little bit, let out the tears, and take a break. Pause. Don't give up. You're worth it. Your mental health. I am, yes, I have my pain. I also have so much joy, so much laughter. I feel so connected to people. I feel so passionate about life because I've delved into my pain. So it's that yin and yang of being human and being a sensory being in our world. And there's a lot, yes, that can feel overwhelming. Create a space to do this for yourself, a space in your home, or find a place in the world that feels safe. You could even go to a park and sit under a beautiful tree and do the grief journey. It doesn't have to be, you're living in an apartment, wherever it is. You could be living in a shelter. Yes, I understand. Go to a quiet park and begin to do the journey within for you.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. Thank you for who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Jayne, for having me and listening and sharing. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me. And I wish you all well on your healing mental health journey. Truly.
Jeanette, thank you so much. You're a pillar of information. I just wanted to let everybody know Jeanette is a psychotherapist specializing in foster care and adoption. She earned her master's degree in clinical psychology. She's the founder of the Celia Center, which is a nonprofit organization in Los Angeles supporting all members of the foster care and adoption constellation, which includes both parents, foster youth, adoptees, foster and adoptive parents, as well as professionals working in the field. And she's also a court-appointed reunification expert for Los Angeles Superior Court in cases involving children at risk for separation. She also published a one-woman show called What's Your Name? Who's Your Daddy? And it's now available on Amazon and is recorded on Audible. And her website is JeanetteYoffe.com. Thank you, Jeanette, and please join us for our next episode. If you or someone you know is harming themselves or thinking about harming themselves, go to crisistextline.org. If you see something, say something. If you suspect a child's health or safety is jeopardized in any way by parents or anyone else, contact the Child Protective Services Agency in your county. 24-hour hotlines are staffed by trained social workers who will help you through the process, and you can do so anonymously. In California, you can call the Child Protection Hotline at 800-540-4000. So if you see something, say something. You might be saving a child's life. If you want to know more about becoming a CASA anywhere in the country, go to nationalcasagal.org, and in LA, casala.org. And if you want to know more about becoming a foster parent, check out the National Foster Parent Association at nfponline.org. There's also faithfosterfamilies.org and adoptuskids.org. There's tons of other information online as well, so you can just hunt around. We also want to thank the supremely talented Christina Apostolopoulos for her beautiful original music. You can find her music on Spotify or Instagram at Christina Aposta. And also thank you to Yukon Har for his engineering. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you hear and you find it as valuable as we do, please rate us and hit subscribe. You can also make a donation at bonusbabies.org. See you next time.